Do you know how powerful it is to face your fears? Do you even know what your fears are? Do you know why you should face your fears? I do. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into for our officially first concept that I want you to master to catapult your business of art, job, career, business into the stratosphere. Fears, you say? How does this have a darn thing to do with the business of art? It has everything to do with the business of art. In fact, facing your damn fears is going to give you the best foundation you can start from. There are 6 reasons why. Let's get into that. Number 1, facing your fears will allow you to build confidence in a way like nothing else. And confidence will give you the ability to go out into the world, talk about your artwork, get to know your artwork, and make tough business decisions. Number 2, we've been there. You have this perfect piece of artwork. It's beautiful, it's lovely, you've created this masterpiece, but it's not done. And you're scared to take that next step because what if you ruin it? Well, that's a problem. You have to be able to work past that fear and take the step. Now, one of 2 things is going to happen. It's really simple. You're either going to fail or you're going to succeed. If you succeed, you might have just made the most powerful piece of artwork you've ever made. And isn't that the point? Isn't that where we want to be? Number 3, you might have failed. You need to learn that failure is okay because it's only through failure that we get to the best places. It's true. Every failure is going to teach you something. And it's okay. Here's an example for you. What did I just learn about facing your fears and fear of failure? This is the 4th time I've reshot this video. Everything is absolutely perfect. The last time, everything was absolutely perfect as well. I forgot to turn on the mic. I failed. And so here I am redoing stuff. Okay, that's the way it is. I wasted about a half an hour on that video. I hate wasting time because time is very important. But I also learned something. Go back to the basics. Always check that everything else in the house is off, that the mic is on, all of that stuff. That was a failure, but it didn't really bother me because failure no longer bothers me. I have practiced failure. I don't worry about it. If I fail, I fail. Who the hell cares? Also, I can learn to succeed this way. When I pass something like that, anything that could be fear-based, okay, I learn to succeed. And this is just not something we're taught. And that's number 4, learning to succeed. You know what? Success is scary shit. It's horrible sometimes. Now you have other fears. Fear of letting people down, fear of not doing it right. There's all kinds of fears that go along with success, and we're never taught how to succeed. The number 1 way you can teach yourself to succeed is go rack up some successes. And by doing it with your fears, you're multitasking. Number 5, learn to recognize fear. We don't always know what fear feels like. And we don't realize that some of the things we're feeling are actually based on a fear. So if you learn to understand what fear feels like for you by acknowledging you have fears and facing them and really paying attention to how that feels, you might encounter situations where you now understand that there's a fear going on. You need to name that fear, but you need to recognize it first. Self-awareness, the 6th and last benefit to facing your fears. The amount of self-awareness you will gain through facing your fears is absolutely incredible. We talked a little bit in the last one, recognizing fear, about naming the fear. That's self-awareness at its deepest, scariest place, right? If you can be self-aware that you have a fear of anything, you can name it, you now know the demon's name, you can now face it. And that is huge self-awareness. It will inform you on obstacles that you can remove, and it will inform you on what your art is trying to say to you. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about the concept of being able to name the fear, I highly recommend reading or watching Earthsea. It's kind of sci-fi, but it puts it into a story format that's actually pretty good. So now we have to talk about, well, how do you recognize your fears, or how do you face them? First thing you're going to do is list them off. Now, if you're not sure that you can brainstorm that idea out, it's okay, we got you. In the download section, there is a download entitled Face Your Damn Fears. And it has a whole list of things. I went and did a Google search on it, and you'd be surprised at how much I learned. I mean, there's probably things that I should probably acknowledge on that list that maybe are fears, because that was a list I hadn't ever even contemplated being scared of some of these things. But that's okay. There is a list. Circle everything that you recognize hits that point of ickiness with you. You know what you feel? It's like you want to run. You don't even want to look at the word. Something in the pit of your stomach. Whatever it is, circle it. Now, once you've done that, go through and decide to fail. Face that fear of failure right from the start. Pick and choose which ones you just aren't going to face. Yeah, I'm telling you to go fail. I'm okay with that. You see, not every fear has to be faced. And yet at the same time, maybe we can take some of those fears and face another fear, and it's like double whammy. Now, cross out a couple of them. Pick and choose, not all of them. You do have to face the majority of them. But choose where you're going to fail. I'm absolutely okay with that. You've just faced the failure fear, and you've done it in such a way that you've made a conscious decision based on self-awareness, and that's huge. Once you're done with that, go ahead and rank them. 1 being the easiest, and 598 being the hardest, or 10 or 99, whatever the number is for you. Just go and start counting out from easiest to hardest. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I know I'm asking you to look at a lot of these things that are fears all at one time, but here's the thing. You're going to normalize it a little bit for yourself while you're doing this process, and that's going to help you to actually face them. Now, once you've got them ranked, make the decision how many you will face over what time. Is it 1 a week? Is it 2 a month? Is it 1 a month? I don't care how many it is, but start facing them within the next week so that your very first, well, really second, because we kind of faced failure already, right? Your second one will be in the next week. I know that's heavy and that's hard, and even the easy fears sometimes are hard, especially if we're not used to facing our fears. But it's important that you get started, because when you face the fears, you're able to go out into the world and talk about things fearlessly. And that's important for an artist. I mean, we have to stand by and commit to what our art means and what we want to say to people. And let's face it, most of us have this feeling as artists. Who am I to say this? Why am I, allowed to do this art thing? And I don't feel worthy. And, I don't know that I think I'm a fraud. Those are all fear-based. We need to learn to just get past all of that fear. And this is the step to doing that. Now, keep in mind that every Friday the 13th from here on end is going to be Fearless Friday. I'll probably put the videos out on Monday or Tuesday, but by Friday for sure. Fearless Friday is going to be me facing fears, because I would never ask you to do something I had not myself done or was not prepared to do. But here's the thing, I have faced a lot of fears, and so it gets harder for me to encounter them. In fact, I get to a lot of points where I'm like, no fear has shown up, I kind of want some. I really think this idea of no fear is just crap. I want the fear, I learn from it, and it motivates me, and it boosts me up, and it builds me up, and I love it. So I've got a solution for that. Maybe I don't have a fear to face, but maybe you've got one on your list that you didn't want to, or you want to have somebody who's facing it with you. I'm all game. Send us an email, leave a comment, send us smoke signals, whatever it is that works for you. And maybe, just maybe, your fear will be the one I choose to face if I don't have one of my own. Now keep in mind, I too have failed at some of my fears, and if you do hit one of those, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to motivate me, or I'm going to just agree to fail. But if that's the case, I promise I'll tell you. Because failure is not a bad thing. I kind of like it. I don't dislike it at the very least. So, This is the project. This is the plan for your first concept. Now, don't paralyze yourself. Don't do like 50 in a week, because paralyzing yourself is exactly what we're trying to stop. So doing too many too fast or choosing hard ones to begin with is setting ourselves up to fail. We don't do that here at Alpaca Paintbrush. We set you and ourselves up to succeed in every way that we can. We do things that bolster confidence. We don't do things that ever crush us. We'll critique ourselves, but we'll never crush ourselves. And that's important for you to remember. Facing your fears is a tough thing, and while it may become addicting as you face a few of them, it's still hard stuff. So be nice to yourself, and when you do face a fear, pat yourself on the back, do a happy dance, have a shot of whiskey, that's what I do, and celebrate that moment. It is a personal victory every time you face a fear. And doing things to celebrate that help release also healthy endorphins, which reinforces that facing your fears isn't a bad thing. I know, we can use science to our benefit all the time in the business of art. There's a lot of science and analytical stuff out there that we can use for our purposes, and because we're creatives, we can be creative about it, and facing your fears is one of those things. I have to tell you, as an added side bonus of facing your fears, you're going to find that you're more decisive. You're also going to find that you're happier. And I can't imagine a better foundation to start from. You're going to be fearless, or you're at least going to be willing to face that fear and move through it. And that is exactly where artists, and actually most people, but for sure artists, need to be as they approach the business of art. Because here's the reality. It's about us, which means we put ourselves out there. Most of us have been taught, put your artwork out there. But isn't that already a part of yourself? I mean, didn't it come from within? So being fearless means you're able to put yourself out there and do a better job for your artwork, because ultimately art just wants to be seen. And unless you're going to approach this with being able to get over your fears, it's going to be a lot harder for your art to get seen. And you know what? Once it's made and once it's created, it really wants to be seen. But you have to take those steps, and so you have to be fearless, and you have to run your business. And that's why it doesn't necessarily start with your artwork. It starts with you. So today, go face your fears. Get them done. I mean, really, what could be more empowering than that? So go to the downloads. You'll find the brainstorm sheet that you can just circle and scratch things out on, and it will help you to, I've got a little dash by each one of them so you can just put a number on it, or go check Google out and learn some new words, because there's a whole lot of phobias I had no idea even existed. Have fun with it, because remember, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Oh wait, the first one might not be so fun, so pick an easy one. I know I've said that, but it's really important that you set yourself up to succeed. Hey, you're still hanging around after the closing clip. That's awesome. Because you're hanging around, I'm going to share a couple of the stories of fears I faced. First one. When I was much younger, I was terrified of snakes. I absolutely would do anything to avoid them. So when I got into high school, this was one of the very first fears I faced, and it was a great learning experience. I decided to handle snakes after school. Now you might ask, at that age, what was your motivation to do something like that? I was being mercilessly teased about my fear of snakes, and I just realized that that gave people the power over me, and that I didn't want them to have that power. So for 3 years, I handled snakes, really big snakes, after school. And that was about an hour to an hour and a half a day. I got to the point of being able to feed them, handle them, clean cages, and it was a fabulous experience. I learned a lot through it. And here's the funny thing. There are unexpected surprises when you hit your fears. Like, for example, did you know that there's a perfect size boa constrictor that gives the best shoulder massage ever? I learned that, and it's amazing. I mean, to this day, I don't find going to get a massage really valuable to me, because it's just not what a python can do. And every opportunity I get, I go ahead and handle snakes still to this day. And it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I find it very soothing. Now, was it horrible at first? It was horrible at first, I'm not gonna lie. But I started with the small snakes. I started with the teeny tiny little ball pythons that I could just hold in my hand because I knew if I needed to, I could just throw it. But that never happened. And so I moved up to the bigger bull snakes, and at the time, because you know the era and the generation, I had a leather fringe coat that snake loved. He would go in and through the arms of the jacket, and he would wind his way around the fringes on the outside, and it was really cool. He was fascinated with it. And I also have a picture of me and 2 other people holding a really large 10-foot boa constrictor. No joke. It was found in the sewers, and my teacher wrote in for adopting it, and our school got it. I mean, those are really empowering moments. Next fear I faced. This one was actually a lot harder. Bridges over water. Now I live in Milwaukee. We're surrounded by 3 rivers that come to a point and go into the lake and all kinds of stuff. So there are bridges over water everywhere. It was so bad that I would literally avoid routes that took me over bridges. And it's totally possible to do. You can avoid them. It adds a lot of time to what you're doing. So a few years ago, on a 1-hour lunch back when I was in the corporate world, I went ahead and stood with 1 foot on either side of one of the lifty bridges. I stood there for the whole hour. I started shaking and crying, and it was awful, and the buses were going by and they were pounding over the grates, and the grates you could see right through to the water. It was a really hard one for me to face. Totally irrational, right? It's a bridge over water. Who cares? I have no idea where the fear came from, but I also knew that it is something that had power over me and my time and energy. So I stood there for the whole hour, and slowly, with the help of a little bit of a meditative thinking, you know, just kind of zone out the noise, don't worry about the bumps. I stood there and I started looking at the river, watching the ducks and the kayakers go by, and I realized that there was a serenity that I could see from the bridge that you couldn't really see from anywhere else, but you had to be on the bridge to see that beauty. And so in the end, that one got me to see something that was beautiful in my city in a very different way. And that was important because my fear had blocked me from that view. And it was wonderful because as a photographer, I could then go and capture different types of images by just incorporating the bridges into my work. It was wonderful. Okay, last story. This is the last fear I faced. Float came to Milwaukee. For those of you who don't know what float is, it's sensory deprivation. You're in the dark in a pod that's body temperature, and there's Epsom salt in the water in the pod, so you're kind of free floating almost. You can't really feel anything because it's body temperature. You can't see anything because it's pitch black, and you can't hear anything because it's soundproof. And you just took an artist's senses completely away. The minute I heard about that, it terrified me. Not hear, not see, not feel. I mean, you might as well just take away the essence of me being an artist. It was not okay. So I knew I had to face it because that's what I do now. The minute they creep up, I go face them as soon as I can. So I scheduled a 1-hour session because that's what they allowed. They had 1 hour or 90 minutes. I certainly wasn't going to do 90 minutes. I don't feel like facing a fear for that long is necessary. And the first 10 minutes or so was awful. It was terrible. I felt like there was nothing there. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. And then again, the meditative kind of practice took over because that's something I do twice a day, every day is meditate. And I have since I was 15. It started as the result of a really bad insomnia problem. And it's been very helpful to me over the course of the years on a lot of different levels that are surprising. I digress. So there I am. I calm my breathing. I calm my mind. I'm not truly meditating here. I'm just doing those like precursor things to meditation. And then something odd happened. I could hear something. Inhale, exhale, heartbeat, the rushing of the blood through your veins. I mean, these are really noises that are drowned out in our everyday life because there's so much else going on. And then I realized that I actually could feel things in a very different way. I could feel my body move in a different way. The more I relaxed and the more I calmed myself down, because there was a little bit of anxiety there, I'm not gonna lie, something else happened that was amazing. My mind began to see where my eyes could not see anything. So here I am, listening to my heartbeat, the blood racing through my veins, which sounds so weird that you can actually hear that, but you can. The inhale, the exhale. I'm feeling how my muscles are moving in a different way like I've never experienced, and then my mind starts seeing an explosion of colors. And that had to last for at least a half hour. I mean, it lasted for so long and it was so overwhelming. And it actually was one of those things that was not just a facing of the fears that helped to inform my art, but it also gave me some inspiration from a visual standpoint I never expected. I believe every artist should actually go do this at least once, because if you give yourself over to that place in that time with sensory deprivation, you really realize the real power of your creative ability and where your mind is helping you and where your body is helping you. I mean, art is very physical, let's face it. It doesn't really matter what you do, it is somehow physically demanding and it's mentally demanding. And I don't know that we always recognize those things. And I also don't know that we recognize where it comes from or how. Doing the sensory deprivation thing was extraordinary. It turned out to actually be one of the biggest experiences that I've had that helped me to develop more of an artistic style, because I saw something in my head that I had never seen on paper, never created. It was really kind of spectacular. So there you go. That's my 3 stories of fears I have faced for you. And, I'll keep you posted if I encounter more. And if not, well, check us out for the Fearless Fridays. I have a feeling some of those are going to be fun.